Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We're back from the lunch break. And although we lost member Kidd, we still have a quorum. So we will go ahead and get started with our strategic planning session. So, Ms. St. Clair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. So welcome to this Physician Assistance Board Strategic Planning Session. My name is Tricia St. Clair. I'm a strategic business analyst and facilitator with Solid Planning Solutions. And today I'm here with
Elizabeth Cornell. Nice to see you.
All right, so we are a neutral party. We don't represent DCA. We don't represent the licensees. We simply are here to provide structure for your strategic planning process. So part of that will be you will see us typing up and documenting today's brainstorming session. We will check for understanding if something seems unclear or we think we need more details. And don't worry, what we're creating today is just a draft. So if you see any grammar or spelling errors, don't worry, we will clean that up later. What we hope from you is that you can minimize distractions. Mainly by that we mean just simply put your cell phones on mute or vibrate. We hope that all contributions will be respected. We are brainstorming, so we want people to just throw ideas out there. We hope everyone feels comfortable participating and contributing. And if we're debating a certain objective, ask yourself if you can live with it. Sometimes you may not like everything, but at the end of the day, ask if you can live with it when we're seeking consensus.
Excuse me, Randy Hawkins, ask you a question.
Yes.
How does this compare to the interview that you had with me and other individuals?
Thank you. So that interview was part of the environmental scan process. And by that, we simply mean looking at the work environment at the Physician's Assistant Board, both inside and out. And that interview was part of an information gathering process to find trends in weaknesses and strengths. And so today you're looking at those weaknesses and strengths and looking for ways to minimize those weaknesses. Does that answer your question? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to start by watching 2 diversity, equity, and inclusion training videos. Commonly, we call them DEI. After that, we'll quickly go through a review of the strategic planning process. You can review the environmental scan if you need to, and then we'll get into the meat of today's session, which is the brainstorming. So I'm going to switch over to these 2 videos.
Hi, my name is Lisa Bacon, Training Manager with the Department of Consumer Affairs Solid Training and Planning Solutions team. I'm excited to bring today's training video about diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI, to all of you. My training experience in DEI goes back to 2015 across multiple departments, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to support DCA's DEI efforts. What does DEI mean? That's the title of today's training video and is truly reflective of what we will cover. The training content was collaboratively built using resources, research, and training with the goal to further our understanding of this important topic. This training video will provide a foundation of the general concepts, understanding, and importance of DEI. The Solid team is honored and excited to be a part of DCA's DEI initiatives, and we will continue to expand our commitment to DEI through both training and learning. I'm also proud to share this year, every Solid trainer will be DEI certified, and more DEI trainings are on the horizon. I expect this will only be the beginning of exciting things to come for DCA. So now, let's get into it. What does DEI mean? Our learning objectives for this training will be to understand what diversity means and who it relates to, why it's necessary to choose equity versus equality. We'll discuss the benefits reflected in our work culture when we practice inclusion, and I'll share several examples of how to integrate DEI. I think it's important to mention this training's alignment with our mission statement, which is to advance a diverse, equitable, and inclusive California Department of Consumer Affairs for all. To understand diversity, we first need to define what it means. Diversity is all the characteristics and experiences which define each of us as individuals and the groups to which we belong. Often there's a mindset which associates diversity with only individuals who fall under the protected classes. Diversity is relevant and inclusive of every human being based on each aspect of our lives. We're multi-dimensional beings, which makes us diversely unique. Race and ethnicity are frequently misunderstood. People don't always recognize or identify themselves with one simplistic and usually limited category listed on a demographic questionnaire. To shed some light on this, here are the definitions. Race is biological and refers to groups of people often based on physical characteristics such as the color of their skin. Ethnicity is a broader term than race, and it's your cultural identity. It's chosen or learned from your culture and family experiences, such as a certain custom, traditions, and languages you've been exposed to within the group you feel you belong. Someone might say their race is Black, yet they associate their ethnicity with Portuguese. Or another person might say their race is white and their ethnicity is Irish. I'm a fan of this diversity iceberg because I feel it's a good representation of human diversity. Above the waterline, we can only see about 20 to 30% of an iceberg. The other 70 to 80% is below the surface. When we first interact with someone, there are features we can quickly identify in a short amount of time, such as their body language, an accent when they speak, possibly their gender, and how they're dressed. But these only represent very limited and sometimes inaccurate characteristics of the person. There are numerous layers and dimensions to who we really are, such as our education, sexual orientation, work ethic, strengths, life experiences, and personality traits. And it's impossible to identify these core attributes within a person until we've invested the time to find out. And this is when unconscious bias comes into play, above the surface, when our brains quickly respond to a person or group of people simply based on limited external perceptions. Our brain is biologically wired to rapidly intake information all around us to determine our safety. It's the mechanism which activates our fight or flight response. This is also known as implicit bias. It's an unconscious response and inherent to all humans. We're exposed to influences from an early age based on our environment, our family, education from schools, community, television, movies, marketing, and one of the most powerful influences in our culture today is social media. Because of these unconscious influences, our brains begin to form stereotypes about the society around us. People who look or act a certain way are categorized in our minds based on these mental intakes. Have you ever had that gut feeling when you've been around someone for 5 seconds? It's important to listen to our intuition, but this becomes a problem when we have a strong reaction to someone based on very limited information. We want to trust that feeling and sometimes revere it as a superpower, but we need to make sure we pause and ask ourselves truthfully what prompted those feelings. This is why unconscious bias tends to have a negative connotation. It is how our brains work, but we have to hold ourselves accountable for how we respond, especially when it's based on an unfair judgment. If we're brave enough to ask and listen to how we've impacted the people around us, we can become more aware of our own biases and reprogram our brain's response system. Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now I want to talk about the E in DEI and the difference between equality versus equity. Equality happens when we provide the same, equal treatment to everyone, and it can feel fair. When we choose to give equity, we create pathways to equal outcomes by recognizing that some people and communities have unequal starting points. This picture reflects what it looks like when we give everyone equal resources. Our intentions may be good, but when we check in and ask people how they're doing, we'll find out not everyone was able to participate. If we check in with people first and find out what they need, it levels the playing field for everyone to succeed. Equality is often related to what most of us know as the golden rule. Treat others the way that you want to be treated. But what you need to succeed can look very different from the people around you. Equity is a verb and a choice. We should all practice the Platinum Equity Rule, which is ask people what they need, then choose to give it so they feel respected. We all deserve respect. Aretha Franklin sang it best. RESPECT, find out what it means to me. I love this quote from Maya Angelou. She says, I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is when inclusion comes in. Inclusion is the practice it takes to create a positive work environment where the differences of every team member is recognized, understood, and valued. Inclusion is about building trust within our working relationships. One attempt isn't going to automatically change everything, and it's not always easy because we don't automatically know what everyone needs or how people prefer to engage. Inclusion takes time and practice. The key is we need to be curious, ask, listen, and invite the people you serve to provide input. Don't just ask for their feedback after the project is said and done. Give everyone involved a voice and a seat at the table. When we practice inclusion, it lifts morale. Retention increases because people like coming to work. When people feel valued and heard, they're innovative, which inspires collaboration within teams, and DCA becomes a destination employer. Simon Sinek believes the role of a leader is not to come up with all the great ideas. The role of a leader is to create an environment in which great ideas can happen. How can we create inclusive engagement? Hold meetings regularly, then give people options for how to communicate and provide input. In work groups, extroverts tend to speak up and sometimes dominate conversations. If an introvert or analytical person who needs a little more time to problem solve isn't given an opportunity, great ideas and insight can be lost. Groupthink, also known as conformity bias, can quickly contaminate a group when everyone's voice isn't heard and understood. When a special assignment or project is given, make sure the goals and expectations are clear. Give everyone on the team an opportunity to learn and grow from a special assignment. Create a mentoring opportunity by pairing someone more experienced with someone who's new to the project. This knowledge transfer is ideal for succession planning. There is a DEI section in the Strategic Planning Environmental Scan. It will centralize input on DEI matters and contain demographic information collected. This section can help further inform the board as it considers impacts of policy decision. Our mission is to provide outstanding support services, oversight, and innovative solutions to boards and bureaus that regulate California professionals and vocations so that through this partnership, all Californians are informed, empowered, and protected. Our vision, together protecting California consumers. Our values, accountability, communication, diversity, employees, integrity, leadership, service, and transparency. As a board, you should ensure that your mission, vision, and values supports change and evolves to meet the needs of all Californians. We want all Californians to feel accepted in seeking services we provide. As board members, you are the leaders of the industry you regulate. In this next section, we will discuss actionable areas to incorporate DEI in 4 areas: policy, licensing, enforcement, and outreach. In policy, we need to ask ourselves if the decisions we are considering will lead to the success of everyone involved. Reflect on who will benefit from or be burdened by the proposal or decision being considered. Are the needs of one demographic different from another geographic group? Think equity. What data or metrics will you use to evaluate the impacts of your decisions? Leverage methods that increase public input and engagement, such as workshops, surveys, and multilingual communications. Actively engage with diverse and underserved communities. Reach out to associations, colleges, interested parties, other licensing or regulatory bodies. Utilize the strategic planning process. Review information collected through the new environmental scans, which incorporate DEI questions. In licensing, when licensees reflect communities they serve, it expands access to all. Use plain language. Simplify communication so it's easy to understand and complete. Expand multilingual resources for applicants and consumers. Consider additional pathways to gain experience and/or education for licensure. Expand outreach for subject matter experts to ensure the exam development process is inclusive. When it comes to enforcement, drive fair outcomes and protect the vulnerable. Review enforcement data and trends. Update enforcement policies, processes, and procedures to mitigate unintended consequences to impacted populations through increased engagement with consumers, stakeholders, and communities. When you build your team, consider the needs of all the communities we serve. Do you need more bilingual staff? Do you need additional staff in certain areas of the state? Expand your outreach through HR, job fairs, and inquire about other opportunities you may not have considered before. As you begin to integrate DEI, remember you can't take the bias from the person, but you can remove the bias from the process. Through outreach, you can increase access and opportunity when you reach and meet people where they're at. Do you know what the second most common language in California is? Spanish. So, when you translate resource materials based on the people you serve, you expand language access. Develop multilingual communications for social media posts, applications, forms, and other resources you provide. Publish written and video testimonials from your diverse consumers, which reflect their age, race, gender, and cultural differences. As you begin to integrate DEI, remember to leverage all the resources available to you at DCA. The Equal Employment Opportunity Office administers the American Sign Language and Real-Time Captioning Services contract. The EEO office conducts the department-wide language survey to identify the public it serves, the languages spoken, and the bilingual resources available at DCA to ensure equal access is provided for all consumers. The EEO office administers the contract for over-the-phone interpreter services to non-English speaking consumers in over 200 languages. The Office of Human Resources administers the bilingual pay program, including the establishment of bilingual positions. The Office of Publications, Design, and Editing coordinates requests for the translation of written materials. The Solid Training and Planning Solutions offers DEI-related trainings, surveys, meeting facilitation, and development of strategic plans. The Office of Professional Examination Services offers examination translation and adaptation services. I want to share one of the many examples of how the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology has integrated DEI.
The California Board of Barbering and Cosmetology celebrates the ever-changing diversity of California's consumers and licensees,
so we can establish a quorum.
which is why the board has made a concerted effort to expand on its language accessibility. Here are some of our achievements.
Please enter 1 for Spanish and 2 for all other languages.
Upon request, each individual that visits the board in person is given the opportunity to access an interpreter via the Language Line phone service if the individual does not feel they are able to effectively communicate with board staff. Let's take a look.
Good morning. How can I help you?
Tôi không nói tiếng Anh.
Okay. Is there another language that you prefer? Do you see one on this list?
Tôi nói tiếng Việt.
Okay.
A unit within the Department of Consumer Affairs called the Consumer Information Center, or CIC, provides phone agents who assist consumers and licensees in English, Spanish, and more than 240 other languages with the assistance of a third-party vendor via the toll-free number 1-800-952 5210. Phone agents usually serve as the public's first point of contact. They provide many services to both consumers and licensees. CIC phone agents answer nearly 1 million calls per year. The board provides 3 additional language access pages in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Korean languages on its website, www.barbercosmo.ca.gov. The English homepage has the option for Google Translate. Almost every publication, form, bulletin, and trifold the board provides is translated into Spanish, Vietnamese, and Korean. Items such as the self-inspection worksheet and the What to Expect When You're Inspected trifold are available in these languages. Select videos such as foot spa cleaning and disinfecting have been translated into the Vietnamese language and posted to the board's website.
Hi, my name is Kai with the State Board, and I'm here doing inspection.
When inspecting salons with Vietnamese-speaking individuals where violations have been found, inspectors utilize a translated violation cover sheet, which contains a simplified, translated explanation of select common violations. Citations that are issued to nail salons are provided in both the English and Vietnamese languages to the establishment owner. Board inspectors, exam site staff, and headquarters staff receive updated, specialized training on how to utilize an interpreter via the Language Line phone service to address language access situations found in their respective job roles. Interpreters are provided free of charge to petitioners in disciplinary review hearings upon request, so that each licensee can fully understand their hearing and the additional information provided at the hearing. The California Board of Barbering and Cosmetology is dedicated to providing all individuals with meaningful access to the board's services, programs, and activities. We are working hard to expand our language access, and will continue to do so.
When we think about DEI, remember diversity is a fact, equity is a choice, inclusion is an action, and the outcome is belonging. UC Berkeley's Others and Belonging Institute states, belonging describes values and practices where no person is left out of the circle of concern. Belonging means more than having just access. It means having a meaningful voice and the opportunity to participate. We need to make sure our efforts aren't just transactional. They need to be transformative, and it will take time. So remember, DEI is a journey, not a destination.
All right, and now we will watch a DEI message from the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs.
In 2022, Governor Newsom issued an executive order directing state agencies and departments to build upon the state's efforts to advance equity by taking new concrete actions to address disparities and expand opportunity for all Californians. The governor's executive order builds upon and strengthens the state's commitment to a California for all. We all have an important role in this effort. As you develop your board's strategic plan, building in and embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion into the goals and objectives is one of the most effective ways we can make progress and produce results with long-lasting impacts. The work that the boards and bureaus do touches the lives of every Californian. That is why it is so important to take into account every Californian when building out the board's mission, vision, values, and goals. The department's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee and the Solid Team are available as a resource to help you in meeting those goals. Thank you for being a part of making our department a diverse, equitable, and inclusive California Department of Consumer Affairs for all.
All right, so with that, we will continue on with our strategic planning. So I'm sure you've had this experience before. You're somewhere unfamiliar and you need to get somewhere. Maybe you're at a large conference, maybe you're at a hospital, maybe you're at an airport. So you go to a directory and you're looking to find out where you are headed. When you look at a directory, what is the most important thing to find first? Exactly where you are, because where you are determines how you get to where you're going. So in our strategic planning process, we always start with where we are now, and that's going to be your mission and values and your environmental scan. Where you're heading, your destination, is going to be the vision, your goals and objectives, and finally, how you get there will be the action plan. So I'll give you a chance to read your mission statement, and keep in mind that the mission statement describes your purpose, why you exist. So I'll give you just a brief moment to read your mission statement. All right, and does that sound like a good description of the Physician Assistant Board's purpose? I see some yet. Okay, great. Next, I'll let you review values, and keep in mind that values are your core beliefs. They help guide your decisions, they help create your work environment, and also describe how you would like to treat your clients. So these are the Physician Assistant Board's current values. Do they look, are you pleased with these values? Do you want to add anything? Do you want to take anything away? Okay, I'm seeing head nods. Okay, we're on a roll. That's very good. Okay, environmental scan. So as I mentioned earlier, that's just taking a look at the workplace inside and outside the Physician Assistant Board. We sent online surveys to your external stakeholders. 128 responded, and then some of the internal stakeholders received online surveys, others had interviews. We had 16 in all of those, so 144 people responded. So the environmental scan, again, is showing more of where your stakeholders feel your new strategic plan should focus on, like what the priorities are. And lastly, are your vision statement. The vision statement describes what would happen if your board completed its mission. So it's a snapshot of a perfect future. So I'll give you a moment to read your vision statement. It's a very nice vision statement. I will say it's kind of another mission statement, though. If you removed the first two lines and just began with healthcare needs for all persons are met in a compassionate, competent, and culturally sensitive manner, that right there would be a vision statement. So you have an option of shortening it to that. But again, this is your vision statement, and you need to have one that you feel reflects the board. So it just needs to be describing what would happen if you achieved your mission statement. So this one here is basically a second mission statement, which if you look at even other organizations, a lot of them fall into that trap, if you will. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's a little wordy. Yes, but only if you want to. My recommendation would be just to get rid of the first two lines, start with healthcare needs, and after that period, end it, and just keep that as your vision statement. But again, your vision statement needs to be what you are comfortable with. So I'm not seeing a lot of
These are, sorry. If I'm going to use a busy reader rule, it would be PAB assures healthcare needs for all persons, competent healthcare for all persons. I mean, if you want me to use a busy reader rule, at least words possible.
And usually vision statements are in the future tense because it's, again, it's something that's already been accomplished.
Yeah, assuring competent healthcare for all Californians.
Wait, hold on. I actually like the. Oh, thank you so much. I'm sorry. I actually like the compassionate, competent, and culturally sensitive manner statement. But I understand the wordiness, but. Maybe competent healthcare for all Californians that is compassionate, competent, and culturally sensitive.
Or I'm wondering if just, competent and inclusive healthcare would kind of cover all of those things.
There you go.
Okay. So after competent, just say and inclusive. So physician assistant board assures competent and inclusive healthcare for all Californians.
I would summarize it.
Okay. And that fits nicely with the new DEI model. So are we good with that? I'm seeing head nods. Okay, wonderful. Oops. All right, so each program determines its goals, and your goals are basically the day-to-day functions of the board. So the physician assistant board has 5 goal areas, and you'll be creating objectives for each of these goal areas today, or brainstorming them. Generally, we recommend to have about 3 to 6 objectives per goal area. Obviously, you can have less or more, but that's generally the number to aim for. And here's a flow chart of the entire strategic planning process. The orange arrow represents where we are today. When we began this process, we met with the board leadership to establish a customized approach to strategic planning. Then we did the environmental scan where we sent out surveys, did interviews. We compiled that information into the report, which hopefully you had a chance to look at before today, that summarizes strengths and weaknesses of the physician assistant board. Today, we're brainstorming objectives for each of those goal areas based on what your stakeholders believe the priorities are. And then after today, we'll create a draft, which the board staff will have a chance to look at. You will have a chance to look at before you finally approve it. Once that strategic plan is approved, we'll meet with staff to do action planning, which is where we simply look at objectives and break them down into tasks, assign them to people with target dates, and success measurements. When we looked at your environmental scan data, we used something called the SWOT analysis, which is just a fancy way of saying we looked at strengths, what you're doing well, weaknesses, what could possibly be improved, opportunities, so those things in the outside world that could possibly benefit your program, and threats, those things happening today that your program might need to address in its new strategic plan. So the strategic direction of the board rests in the hands of those involved today. No pressure. Staff are responsible for carrying out the strategic plan and ensuring that the objectives are completed. So with that said, understand that your staff has limited time and resources. So your tools today are your expertise. And then hopefully you've had a chance to fill in your objective workbooks, at least some of you, and also this environmental scan. So again, the goal is 3 to 6 objectives per goal area. We won't be writing the objectives today, we'll just be information gathering. So we'll start with, okay, what's an issue or topic? why address it, how can the board solve or address it, and the desired outcome. And I'm sure you've heard the SMART model before about specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-based. But with the whole DEI focus, we've added the I and the E, inclusive and equitable. So now we have SMARTY methodology that we'll be applying to our objectives today. And to give you an example of what that looks like, we have an example. So at the top, this is just a generic example for enforcement. The issue is you have untrained staff and unclear policies and procedures. Why address it? Well, there's inconsistent interpretation and application of laws. How can the board solve it? You can map your current procedures, write clear policies, and train staff. And the desired outcome is policies are clarified, staff are trained, and you have consistent interpretation and application of laws. Underneath that, we have the SMARTY methodology where it's being applied. And then after this, we would come up with an objective, something like evaluate and update existing internal enforcement policies and procedures to ensure fair and equitable processes and disciplinary outcomes. Again, today we're only going to be focusing on the top information gathering part, but that's how we're going to do it. Any questions? All right. Our first goal area is licensing and professional qualifications. The board has defined it as promote licensing standards to protect consumers and allow reasonable access to the profession. If you want to refer to the environmental scan, this is on pages 8 through 10, but for your convenience, we summarize the weaknesses here. Increase, clarify, and simplify communication with external stakeholders, and increase licensing staff. So those are priorities that were identified in the strategic plan. Do you need any time to reference your environmental scan, or do you want to jump? Oh, before you jump into it, you may have noticed at your place these weird index cards. Some programs find this helpful, you may not, but as we're discussing objectives, you can hold a green card up if you're ready to move on, like you're done. If you're not ready to move on, you can hold a red card. Hey, I want to talk about that some more. Don't move on. And the white cards are for people who are, they want to say something, but they don't want to speak it. So if you want to write something, but you don't want to speak it, just hold this up, and either I will collect it from you or Elizabeth will, and we'll add it to our typing. So we just want to make sure we're inclusive, and for those people who maybe are a little shy or don't want to speak into their mic, you have a way to participate. So with that said, are we ready to jump into it, or do you need some time?
I think everybody here just as soon jump into it.
Okay. All right.
So let me ask you a question, because I looked at these weaknesses. They seem inconsistent with, and I understand the difference between internal, external stakeholders, but this is common for everybody, I guess. Yeah. Sure, we have growing number of physician assistants and more licensing staff, but we just heard from our reports today that we're doing pretty well with licensing in terms of turnaround, right? So I don't know how we interpret a weakness in this context when our data shows us it's probably really not a weakness.
And that's where your expertise comes in. Remember that at the end of the day, your environmental scan is opinions of, and your external stakeholders don't have the inside information that you have. So you have to consider what they say. Okay, is there truth in that, or do we know something different?
Okay. So the other one is...
The other part of this is that this is very forward-looking. Like, so what do we anticipate in the next 2 or 3 years that is something we may need to address that has to do with licensing and qualifications? And so sort of thinking about, well, we've got all these new programs coming on board. We want to make sure that we're adequately addressing the needs from a staff perspective in order to maintain the current level that we're achieving.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes.
And that's something that we're always talking about. We're always talking about we don't want to be behind because we are at the top of our game right now, but with 300 programs or just 20 plus programs in California, we don't want to be behind. So that's one of the things we always talk about at every meeting. Do we have enough people? Do we have enough money? Can we do this? So that is something.
And we just grew our staff. So Rosanna, I mean, this is obviously something, I know you already do it, but, you know, it bears underscoring that constant vigilance as to what our staffing needs may be moving forward, budget allowing.
So that's one of the things that I put on there, to hire additional licensing staff to meet the demands of growing applications in schools and maintaining our 30-day processing times.
So that seems like a pretty realistic goal to always maintain that in that 30-day range.
Yes, or less.
Yeah. Okay.
And as we type up your brainstorming, if we miss something, please let us know. Or if we get it wrong, please let us know. All right. So does that look like we captured that one?
Yes.
Okay, so it sounds like the issue is hiring enough staff to keep up with the growing licensing population. Is that a fair description of the issue? Okay. I see it. Yes, there's a hand up.
Yeah. You all have? That's good. Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's called horizontal integration of your staff, which in the business context, I really think
Right.
helps you rather than vertical integration. Yeah. Okay. So everybody should be learning skill sets across.
So would the issue then be like siloing of knowledge, need for cross-training, or? Would the issue, like to identify the issue or topic, right? Is this a separate issue, like you want to have people cross-trained? Or is
So-
it,
I think what Ms. Gerard was saying, because now we have implemented the auditing process, which we will need additional staff for that. So we are moving towards the direction which this will help us get those additional staff, to ask for those positions.
Right. So that means we need additional people.
Well, that's,
Thank you so much. Yes.
So for members of staff, if you want to speak, we need to get you on a mic. So why don't you just go ahead and approach, and you can sit up here. If members of staff need to speak, or there's this table here too.
you're
We
encouraged.
just need to make
speak.
sure you have a full record of the meeting.
Yeah. You're encouraged to speak, guys, if you want to, please. So they have more stuff to write down here that we can think about.
All right. Any other issues?
In our discussions earlier, we talked about the acknowledgement of the need to improve or increase diversity in our populations of providers.
Okay.
And the reason to address it is the idea that diversity improves inclusion, it improves growth in certain populations where there's a need or acknowledged need or benefit. How can they solve the we reaching out to how can the board solve or address discussions with institutions that provide training. Desired outcome would be to improve diverse populations, increase service underserved populations, community populations, something to that effect.
Okay.
And better health outcomes.
Yes.
And better health outcomes. And when you say, for the desired outcome, when you say improve diverse populations, do you mean improve the diversity of physician assistant boards or
Yeah.
physician assistants?
I'm talking about physician assistants at this point, yes.
Yes, okay.
And I would agree with health outcomes because association that some populations are more likely to seek care with those that look like them or act like them with your equity and your earlier slides about what equity looks like.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, I would say that diversity would just improve access.
Diversity would improve access. Okay, so yeah. Thank you. Any other issues or topics you'd like to address, focus time and resources on in the next 2 to 3 years, or excuse me, 2 to 5 years in the area of licensing and professional qualifications?
Well, I didn't see where you put in there that, us making sure we have horizontal integration of our skill sets among employees is going to better increase our efficiency. So I'd like to see that in there.
Okay,
So I think the issue for that would be siloed knowledge.
siloed knowledge. And do you mean
And-
siloed knowledge amongst the staff?
Right.
Okay, thank you. And then why address it?
Well, efficiency is
Efficiency?
Yeah, so you're going to make sure everybody's cross-trained so that when a spike comes up in one area, you have the staff to handle it without necessarily going out and having to hire new staff on an emergency basis.
Okay,
Or if someone goes out sick,
Right.
it doesn't grind to a stop.
Right.
While you're hiring other people
Right.
in that process.
right, because that process we know can take some time. Right, so you have the coverage staff coverage while people are on vacation and also during the hiring process. And then how would the board address the siloed knowledge? How would they break down those silos? You have cross-training. Any other thoughts?
Like educational training, they can go to educational events or.
Okay, and then the desired outcome.
Total staff education, I don't know, in terms of.
Or all staff are
To
cross-trained.
use Juan's words, horizontal integration.
Horizontal integration, okay.
We want multiple staff members capable of fulfilling other roles.
Okay, multiple staff able to fulfill multiple roles. The horizontal integration sounds wonderful, but then this is going to be a published document, and for the sake of plain language, I think we'd have to go with something a little more direct.
You're going to edit that, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we are. We are just gathering information today. Yes. All right, so those are 3 objectives. You could rest with that. Do you want to go for any more, or do you want to move on to the next goal area?
Well, I think we move on to the next area so that we can, we don't want to overwhelm you. And then I think once you edit it and feed it back to us, we'll probably have some better thoughts on it. Now everybody's hearing
Okay.
everybody else's thoughts.
All right. And just so you know, Elizabeth and I are going to mix it up so you don't get tired hearing one of us talk. So she will be leading the next one, and I will be typing for it.
Okay. So for goal area 2, legislation, regulation, and policy, you have the goal area in front of you, the statement. And would you like a few minutes to look at the summary, or would you like to get started?
No, let's just get started. So let me ask a question. Are the, you know this, Rosanna, are our regulations, do they have hyperlinks on our website so that people can go to regulations? Yes. Okay, so that's easy. Now, one thing I wrote down here in my workbook was in legislation, this is where we have that opportunity to bootstrap not only changing the name, which I think will have widespread support, to other objectives we may have. So I know one objective that we have is increase the funding, because that, if we looked at our budget, since I've been here, it was 24 months, 17 months, 18 months, whatever it was. We're now down to 14 months. And as I stated before, we're looking at, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years, I mean, maybe not 10, but at least 5, a significant erosion of personal income tax feeding the general fund. And I think one way we can isolate us from that is to make sure our licensing fees go up. Because what are they now? How much?
225.
Yeah, 274 for the initial,
Uh-huh.
and then the 300, and it'll be now $18 for the renewals.
Wait a minute, state that again?
So we have biannual renewals, which is going to be $318, Julie. And then our initial licensing fee is $274.
So a new licensee gets charged $274.
No, the initial licensing fee is
Initial.
$200.
Okay,
With the
The application
Mm-hmm. Plus
fee
the
that we
cures
charge
that
is
goes to the cures.
is $25.
okay,
So the $274 comes in play if you're having the background check done by fingerprint cards. And
okay.
the renewal fee is $300, and then the cures fee goes directly to the DOJ for maintenance of that program. So for the board, it's $200 initial and $300 renewal.
What do we pay per year, Michael? You're government
But you
employee,
guys are
don't pay it.
lawyers. No, I'm just kidding.
Your job is more important than ours, I think.
True. But
Yeah, something like that, 500? Yeah, so I think it's too cheap. So anyway, that's one of the things I'd like to see in the legislation, is having the external stakeholders, COPPA and so forth, get on board with us to brainstorm on a bill that will achieve multiple objectives.
So what we capture here so far is, if you see it on your screens, the topic is increased funding. Did we capture that correctly?
Yeah,
And why to address the significant erosion of the general fund, how to solve it.
significant unreliability of the general fund looking forward.
Okay, significant unreliability of the
Or
general.
no, I'll take that back, sorry, volatility.
Got it, thank you. And how the board can address it is by increasing licensing fees.
Yep.
And lastly, the desired outcome bill that achieves multiple objectives.
If it's all right, I think we would maybe be clear the desired outcome is adequate funding for the board's operations.
All the board members on board with that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else you would like to add to any of these questions? Did we capture everything? So before we move on to another objective, if you had any other objectives for this goal area, we didn't open up for public comment in the previous goal area. Would you like to open up?
Yes, let's do that. Any public comment on, that was the,
Licensing and professional qualifications. So right now, I'm showing the objectives that were created, and do we have any public comment on this?
okay. Doesn't appear that there's, oh, wait a minute. Julie's coming up.
I wasn't sure if this was the correct area to address the weaknesses that were identified in the questionnaire or
Yes.
survey.
If it's for licensing and professional.
Licensing. I think one of the weaknesses that was identified was communication. And I didn't know if one of our objectives should be to increase outreach. My idea has to collaborate with the PA program directors to get accurate contact information, and maybe once a year remind them that we do have outreach and we can do presentations. So I didn't know if that we needed to circle back around to licensing for objectives so that we could maybe identify ways that we can improve the outreach. I don't know. I was just looking at what our weaknesses were and the fact that we didn't really put an objective on there.
Do we, I don't know, what do we think? Do we put that in communication and outreach or under licensing and professional qualifications?
It seems like it might be a better fit under communication and outreach.
Okay.
Well, I think maybe the reason why that was mentioned is because most questions are about licensing and professional qualifications. So is that right, Julie? Okay. Okay.
All right, so we took a note of that, so we can make sure we include that when we get to the communication and outreach.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. So back to goal area 2. Any other issues or topics you would like to address in your new strategic plan?
I think rather than focusing on the name change specifically, just the issue would be to stay abreast of current changes in the profession.
Let me ask you your reasoning. Why don't you just want to put name change up there?
Because in the next 4 or 5 years, there may be other things that we should address, not just that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
So that regulations keep pace with current practice.
and how can the board address this?
I think working closely with stakeholders to identify regulatory issues.
And what is the desired outcome?
Regulations that reflect current PA practice, or that, trying to think of how to wordsmith this, but regulations that enhance public safety while allowing PAs to practice efficiently.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from any of the other board members on this objective? And typically, we recommend adding objectives that are issues to address or new topics, day-to-day objectives that are daily tasks. We discourage those. However, you mentioned that there's a lot of changes in the industry, right, in the profession, I apologize, in the profession. So I would imagine we agree that it would be an objective to add. Any additional objectives you would like to add to this goal area?
Well, I don't think we need to put up there since it's already in the pipeline with the OAL, right, for the regulatory package. That's just going to take its own course, right? Okay.
So one thing we talked about, I think in this category last time we did this, was for the board to function fully independently. And so I'm not sure if there's something we want to continue that. I think we definitely met that from the last strategic plan, but I think moving forward, is there more, I think we need board staff input to say, like, you know, what would be helpful in the plan.
We now do perform as an autonomous body. Even in our statutory, we've stricken out where it says we are under the jurisdiction of the medical board. So we are now an autonomous board. So I'm not sure as far as what more we can do. And we've brought enforcement in-house. All our admin processes are in-house now. So I think just review and update regulations to align with existing statutory requirements, maybe that.
So there's no no function that we are outsourcing other than the
Well,
obvious?
we do utilize, sorry, we do, for, as far as our enforcement, that's the enforcement part of it. You know, we utilize we don't have our own investigators, so that's, you know, but as far as us processing, and then not being under the jurisdiction of the medical board, we've, you know, we're a standalone board.
So many of our cases are out for quite a while in investigation. Do you think it would be helpful to have our own investigators?
That's what I'm thinking.
That's the direction we're going towards, but it's not something that, you know, we're looking into that option.
Well, strategically speaking, if it will reduce our turnaround time on enforcement cases, that's probably a good. So,
But we have to show enough workload
Right.
to have that in-house person to investigate.
What will
You don't think we do at this point?
We've done our numbers. It's more internal right now where it's in discussion, but as far as cases out on to the field, it's not enough to have a one personnel staff doing that field investigation. If
Well,
we
what-
include both desk and field, then yes, and that's the direction we're going.
Well, then we should put, in terms of policy, we should put that up there to study it. Don't you think, Rosanna?
I just thought it would be better suited with the whole enforcement, getting more staff, and I'm not sure as far as legislation, do we need a?
No. In terms of internal policy.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's more suitable for the enforcement section of it,
I see.
you know? Yeah.
Okay, oh, that makes sense.
So we'll copy and paste it so we address it when we get to that goal area. Give us just a moment here. And for goal area 2, any other objectives? And sorry, Rosanna, I think you mentioned one, reviewing and updating regs.
Yes. To align with existing statutory requirements.
Okay. And how can that be addressed?
Currently, we have one staff, so I'm thinking maybe we need to add additional staff to the regulation and legislative unit.
And what's the desired outcome?
That we timely adopt regulations through careful planning, collaboration with stakeholders, and ensuring that regulations are effective and enforceable.
We might need you to repeat it slowly.
Yeah, it's, okay, so where were we?
Timely adopt regulations through
Careful planning, comma, collaboration with stakeholders, comma, and ensuring that regulations are effective and enforceable. And Jasmine, if you want to add anything, you're welcome to.
Make sure that they're collected and enforceable.
They're effective and enforceable.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Board members, anything you would like to add or any questions you may have for Rosanna? No?
Perfect.
Do you have 3 objectives so far?
I was just wondering if anybody else had any comments? No?
No? Good.
All right, any public comment on this section, legislation, regulation, policy, policy? Okay. So goal 3, I guess?
All right, so the next goal area is communication and outreach. And again, we've summarized what the stakeholders felt the priorities should be. So we have that on the next slide. Give you a moment to read that. And then it sounds like we already have a head start from that, the public comment we took about reaching out or doing outreach to help with. I'll let Elizabeth type up her notes. Okay. So forgive us. There was something about working, collaborating with PAs. Did you want to?
On?
I think so.
I think my comment was just referring to working more closely with the PA programs to let them know that we would provide a presentation going over the licensing to help prevent any significant delays and answer the questions in the beginning versus them applying and having a lot of hurdles that they face. So that would be my hope this year and in the next couple of years to increase that opportunity for outreach.
Okay. So the why I address it is just to prevent those delays that happen with like incomplete applications or
misinterpretation of what the application instructions and the guidelines that are set forth in text, just to follow them so that they have clear and concise information at the beginning.
Okay.
Opportunity to answer questions in the beginning versus after the fact, and them not being understood or clear on what their instructions are.
Okay.
So yeah, I just think it's really helpful when we've had that opportunity. The feedback has been great from the schools that they really appreciate that time, and it's been helpful.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So you might, because there was other things mentioned about outreach regarding regulations, so you might change the issue or topic, increase outreach regarding licensing. We can add another one for regulation.
And it sounds like why address it? It's to avoid delays in the application process due to misunderstandings.
Or unnecessary. Just avoid unnecessary delays in the
To
application
avoid
process.
unnecessary delays in the application process. Okay. Are you good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Next one is in the summary of problems down at the bottom says external communication increased when there are changes in the law. So I think this is like regulatory outreach. And I think why is so that stakeholders are well informed.
Okay. And how the board can solve or address that.
Rosanna, is on the website, is the summary of like the bills that are pending and is all of that? I know the meeting documents are on there, but it's an easy place to find for stakeholders if they wanted to look and see what we're talking about and thinking
Yes, so when we revamped our website, we do have a section, it says laws and regulations, which we did have before too, but now it's broken down. There's laws and then all our regulation and all the pending regulatory regulations are there too. So.
Okay, maybe in the newsletter, just.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that we came up with is create a more robust consumer and licensing education program through video, social media, campaigns, and electronic publications to ensure understanding of new changes in laws and regulations.
Okay. So it sounds like a great way that the board can resolve this. And can you repeat it more slowly so Elizabeth can type it?
Okay.
Do you have it written down?
Yes, I can send it to you. Or do you want it now?
Oh.
Oops, sorry. Yep.
So I have a question, Rosanna, anyone on the board. How are we doing with, I think we anticipate with the increased growth of mid-levels, let's say physician assistants specifically, there's a need to ongoing education of the consumers about the role, the practice, the experience of physician assistants. How are we doing now with educating on our website, YouTube videos and that sort of stuff? Is there a need for that given the growth?
we finally, I mean, it's been, I think, 2021, we finally have social media presence, so we're doing that. Also Kappa, we've been doing outreach on that front. The first outreach that I was actively part of, I was surprised that not all PAs really knew who we were, even though we are the Licensing and Regulatory Board. So that's one of the things that we are this year trying to do more outreach, come up with different ways. And then we now have a newsletter as well. So our very first newsletter was published last year. So
How about with the consumers, as we change the name or actually have consumers and providers understand who physician associates are, is there a need to educate the public as well?
So as far as the name change, unless there's a legislative change, there's nothing the board can do. Yes, if the bill comes through, that's something that will be up for discussion, but we did put on our website as far as an outreach or an explanation that they're still to use physician assistant until there is a legislation or it's changed through the legislature.
So let me ask it another way. So if you had 100 people in the room that were consumers and you said physician assistant, would 80% of them know what that meant, the scope of practice? Is there a need to educate? That's the only question I'm really asking.
Well, I'm going to help in that. I think we do need better outreach. I just finished my doctorate and my dissertation was on that. And a lot of people still don't know, even after almost 60 years of practice, who physician assistants or physician associates are. So I do think that we need better information out to our consumers about who we are.
Okay, so that could be another issue, just improve information to consumers about the role of about what physician assistants are.
And what we do.
And what they do.
I think you have somebody else that wants to contribute.
Oh, yes, please.
I have a comment regarding that. I had an opportunity to do outreach for the medical board for about almost 12 years. And there's a lot of consumers out there that really don't go on the computer or social media. And a lot of them didn't even know who the medical board was when I would do these events. I would actually go to community health fairs or campuses that were holding just information health fairs, or like a community day. And, we would talk to them, inform them who the medical board was, and just educate them on what we do. But like I said, there's a lot of people out there that do not still go on the computers or social media and to find this information.
Thank you. So it sounds like in terms of how the board can address it, part of that how needs to include not only information on the website, but actually going out in person to events for those people that don't follow social media or don't have access to computers, to be more inclusive. So just go out in person, attend events, as well as posting information on the computer. Does that sound fair or doable?
Yeah, also, I think we should probably, as the technology changes, look at streaming public service announcements, which are becoming incredibly cheap as cable companies blow apart and satellite.
Okay, so that could be that could be another how to address it, or do you want that to be a separate topic?
How to.
How to? Okay, so stream public service announcements.
I'm also thinking that, increasing that information dissemination to new physicians as well. And letting them know, how to best utilize a PA and regulations on PAs, and maybe doing presentations to either medical schools or residency programs, so that this is what PAs can do, and this is how they can help your practice, and kind of help in that sense. Because I know a lot of them don't know how to utilize them or what regulations there may be here.
Okay. And did you want that to be a separate topic, or were you thinking this is part of how the board can solve this particular issue?
I mean, I think it kind of all goes one and the same.
Okay. All right. So the why address it, it sounds like most people still don't know or understand what physician assistants can do. Is that a fair summary of what's been said for the why address it?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think that as you have more and more physician assistants providing service, increasingly people will begin to know who and what they do. So that'll be, but I think there's a reason to get ahead of the game because we already know that there's going to be increased numbers of these providers taking care of patients.
Okay. So desired outcome then would just be increased number of people know what physician assistants are capable of or the services they provide.
What people
Sure.
are, and that's fine.
And did we have a one above here that was unfinished? It seems like we did. Okay, we got a little distracted. So we have the regulatory outreach, letting stakeholders know about changes in regulation. So we don't have a desired outcome for that. Did anyone want to mention a desired outcome for this one, the regulatory outreach?
I think we want licensees that are well-informed and compliant with the law.
Okay, licensees that are well-informed and compliant with the law. Thank you. Okay.
Sonia, did your research, if we're going back to the one we were just speaking of, did your research push in any different direction or additional direction related to increasing folks' knowledge about physician assistants, what they do, and et cetera, et cetera? Is that number 3 or?
Yes.
Okay. If you're not finished with number 2, then
No, we're good. So
what happened?
we have increased the number of people who know what physician assistants are and the services they provide.
Okay, great.
Okay. So that's 3 objectives. Any other topics or issues you'd like to address for communication and outreach?
Did we move another one to this area? I think one of the.
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
No, I'm just saying, did we? I thought we already.
Oh, yes, that one was the licensing one.
Okay.
We started with that one.
Got it.
Yep, thank you, though. Good memory. All right, so if no one else has anything, oh,
We started with staff mentioning one in communication and outreach. Where is that one at?
that's the first, that was the first one. That was licensing, so when we covered.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
We put it there. Okay, thank you.
We did. Thank you. All right, so if no one has further issues or topics, we'll go ahead and take public comment. Oh, thank you.
We have public comment.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Teresa Chen with the California Academy of Physician Associates. And I just wanted to make a suggestion in hearing some of the ideas from both the board and the staff. I would encourage the PA board to also reach out to CAPA to collaborate on some of these communication outreach issues because we also fully recognize that this profession has a public awareness issue. However, some of the issues that were brought up, particularly one that was about reaching out to PA schools and educating their students, CAPA has been developing a transition to practice resources to graduating students into early graduate PAs. We would love to work with the PA board. We've got a great relationship with 21 of the 23 schools, and it's not all 23 because the 2 are still developing. We've got a great relationship with all of them, and we are happy to help connect and open up relationships with those PA schools, establish communication, and maybe work together on some presentations since we're already going into schools to do these presentations. So for all of these ideas that were listed, we encourage working with the PA board on that.
Love it.
Thank you very much. So-
Could we put that into the how-to
Yes.
coordination with CAPA and other such
Collaborate.
organizations?
Yeah, collaborate with CAPA
Yep.
under the how-to section.
Thank you, Ms. Chen.
Yes. Yep, you got it. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. So we've got 3, and we'll move on to the next goal area.
Next goal area, enforcement. Give you a moment to read the statement. And if you need to reference 16 and 18, pages 16 and 18. We have the opportunities here on the slide. Decrease time to process cases, increase enforcement information to external stakeholders, and increase enforcement staff. We did have one have own enforcement investigators. Did you want to continue with that objective?
I think so, only because that would take off, needs to take less time for resolution of those complaints if we had an in-person. So I'll let Rosanna take that over.
And how can that be done?
That would be done through a budget change proposal to increase the number of enforcement staff.
Okay, and what's the desired outcome?
That would be to reduce our enforcement timelines.
Any questions or comments from the board members on this objective? No? Any other objectives you would like to add on to enforcement? Anything you want to address within the next few years?
Maybe increase the number of MCs or our the expert reviewer program. I don't know, Armando, do you want to add to that?
Yes, my goal is to increase the number of medical consultants. So we have a wide variety of multiple specialties because not all consultants are available. Currently, I have, I believe it's 9 right now, but they're not always available. So, so if a consultant's not available and it's a certain specialty, then I might not be able to get that case reviewed. One of the ways to make that number grow is to either possibly advertise in our newsletter or in our website that we're looking for new medical consultants and process our applications. So get them in with us.
I was curious whether probation department has any comments, the folks involved in probation. Just asking.
So we've captured, increased the number of SMEs, subject matter
Armando.
experts.
I think the outcome that is the same, reduced timeline. For enforcement, reduced enforcement timeline.
Any other comments or additions?
Did I just imagine, or did I not read in here, I can't seem to find it, that there was a comment from an external stakeholder that said, it was like a repetitious comment, that we should not be spending too much time investigating cases which are merely disgruntled patients. Did I not see that? It was in there? I can't find it.
I think this goal that we just put up there for the strategic plan would address that, though, because the medical consultants would suss that out pretty quickly.
Right, because that's a little bit of a disconnect from the public not understanding, so yeah.
I think another thing in terms of outreach that might be helpful is to explain the complaints and investigation process.
Yes, so we have something here. Educate external stakeholders and licensees about the enforcement process to increase awareness of the board's enforcement role and responsibilities. The blue one.
And how can the board address it?
By we can create a enforcement video. We can, just like we did for the applicants. We have pamphlets already, right, Armando? We can expand on that.
We have pamphlets already, but another way that we address, like, for consumers, the concerns is I take their phone calls, we discuss the complaint, and sometimes there might be some confusion with the letter. They might not understand the letter, but I try to explain it to them, because sometimes just getting a letter, we don't want them to think that we just process them like a number. We want them to know that we reviewed their case and we addressed it. So the reason for communication via phone, it gives them an opportunity to ask questions if they don't understand something. So.
Armando, let me ask you, when you do that, by the way, I think that's an excellent exercise, rather than just getting a letter we've reviewed and no. Does that take a lot of your time, or do you have you sufficiently resourced to do that?
Yes, it does take time, because I initiate the cases, I review them, I request information, and then we close the cases. So that takes up time, and I send, I might be sending cases to the medical consultant. It takes time. You gotta finding one is not hard, because I only have so many right now. But but once I find somebody, I still scan the case, package it up for them, and send it to them. And there's communication between them to see if they can accept the case or not to review.
I guess my question is, are you behind, or you think you're on top of your tasks in doing that?
Well, we're a little behind, but we're catching up as we build the MC, as we get more MCs to review the cases. And I have some of the staff that help me out sometimes, but I still think that we need a staff to assist, but like to help with some of like the more clerical stuff, and I can focus on more on.
So as far as meeting the 10-day mandate when a complaint is received to the time that Armando sends out the letter or initiation is 10 days, which he's meeting on his own.
Yes.
However, this budget change proposal would, assist us in, getting more staff in the enforcement unit. If it's an investigator, they can assist with the desk investigation plus the field. If we don't get an investigator, we can get a complaint analyst instead of an investigator. Just completing the desk investigations and then still sending cases to the field for field investigation.
Right. Well, what I'd like to see, at least, I think, is the exercise Armando is doing right now, where there's actual outreach to a person, is very different from getting a letter saying, no action, we've looked at it. The complainant feels unfulfilled, at least with the personal contact, they'll feel like something is done, and it increases the confidence in the entire system, including the PAs and us. So I think that's something that we should keep that up. Thank you, Armando.
Yeah, thank you.
To add to that, I mean, a lot of things that just came out of Armando's presentation, which was clerical to help get the word out and so forth and so on. And I know that you work on the web design in terms of getting the information, the newsletter. Can there be one person that does newsletter, getting the information out? Because I know as a new PA, I learned about a lot of things through CAPA's newsletter And so can we, as the more robust PA board, put together a newsletter that we're doing so that we can educate the, the new PAs coming out about who we are, what we do, and some of those things.
And which we do. Jasmine Dillon is our specialist. She
Right.
not only does our regulations and our legislation, she also is the outreach coordinator. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. I think we're going to need more people, though.
Yeah,
Because it
as-
sounds like.
Yeah, because as we grow, right, that's the
Right.
way we have to show workload and,
Right.
which we will have to put a budget change proposal for additional staff members.
So one thing about this strategic plan is like, it's just showing that we need more people, which is incredibly good because even with the role of our enforcement, new PAs to give that. And I know Jed has been working on that for years. And now that we have them, I still don't think a lot of people know about it. So I think it would be good just to put it out there in a wider way to alert them to, hey, we need, PAs to come and be medical examiners.
Did we accurately capture the discussion? So objective 3 on the screen.
I think you could maybe have something on the website that says, what happens when a complaint gets made, like a little video or something, and that would be helpful for both licensees and consumers.
Okay, so add information to the website for both licensees and consumers regarding the enforcement process.
We currently have the complaint process already, but again, we can expand to, yeah.
I think also in that newsletter, maybe having like a thought of like, how can you help? Because I don't think that there's a translation of like PA students to know that they, at one point, maybe they would be good to be on the PA board. I don't know if the thought is there. I know I didn't know that when a new PA. I didn't know that. It took years.
Oh, to be on the board?
To be on the
Yeah.
board or.
Yeah, we
you know.
do have, it leads to the governor's site, as
Got
far
it.
as being a board member and, yeah.
Okay.
And want to make sure we captured this correctly. Is this still within this objective, or is that a whole other objective? How to recruit board members or board staff were you referring to?
It was a separate comment, but it kind of went with that.
I think that could be outreach, right?
Yeah, that would be
Outreach. Yeah, could be outreach, better at outreach. And I think Armando's in the back, wants to come in as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Armando's back.
I just wanted to add another comment about information, for consumers. On our questions and answers, we're going to try to work on that as well, and just be more informative to the public on what type of cases we can assist with, because there's also cases out there that we get that are, let's say wait times. We'll get complaints about that, and there's some of those things we can address, because it's not in our jurisdiction. It might be handled more by the insurance carrier or the office manager. That's just an example. There's other type of cases also with demeanor with staff. We get those complaints in, and we address them if it's something that's affecting the care and treatment provided to that patient. But sometimes there's some cases that we get that we cannot handle. So adding more information to our questions and answers on our website, I think could help us as well.
Thank you.
So we added a few more items. Now, did that accurately capture the objective? This objective look good. Now we will jump back to outreach and the add to newsletter telling licensees how they can be on the board. Why would the board need to address
Oh,
this?
increase diversity, not only the diversity we spoke of, but also geographic diversity, which I think is an important part of diversity that I don't think was covered adequately.
So So increase the diversity geographically, and what was the other diversity?
Well, as the video, all the,
Okay, in general. Okay. And how would it be addressed?
well, just as it states, adding to newsletter, or whatever advertising platforms we have, and in fact, also when we're doing outreach at schools, let people know, hey, you should consider public service in terms of board membership at some point.
Okay, so we sort of have the, go
Can we
ahead.
go back to why address it? So I guess it was increase basically the DEI and diversity geographically.
Right. Yes, thank you, Sonia. That's exactly
Okay,
what I
increase
meant.
DEI and the diversity. Okay. And I was mentioning that we have the how in the issue, but the issue was to basically recruit more board members. So we've captured that. What is the desired outcome?
Well, I think more opportunities for wider points of view on board members and wider experience base.
Okay, more opportunities for wider points of view. And
Also information or education about the PA board.
education and information about the PA board. Any other comments or refinements to this objective that we added in the comms and outreach? No? Question, would you like to open up the comms and outreach to members of the public now that another objective was added?
Yep, let's do that. Any more public comments? Okay.
So we'll jump back to, we have 3 objectives under enforcement. Do you have any additional objectives you would like to add?
I think that's good.
Okay.
Good to me.
Shall we open up?
Did we need
open
public
up?
comment there as well? We haven't done that yet. Yeah, so any public comment on the enforcement section of the brainstorming? Okay, good. So admin,
All right, you're on the home stretch. Your last goal area, administration. We'll give you a moment to read that definition.
2-year or 4-year strategic plan?
It depends on how many objectives you have and how long you think it'll take to achieve them. So generally, strategic plan's lifespan is anywhere from 2 to 5 years. I've had some programs say forever. Can we have forever? And it's like, no, that's not an option. But we'll see after administration. We will add up your number of objectives, and you can decide then. All right? Okay, so we'll go on to the summary of administration weaknesses.
Wow, I think we just said all of that, all in one.
Yeah. So, okay, well, so,
I have a question. Rosanna, do you have a comment about this? As an executive director on the administration, do you have a comment?
Comment is in,
Need for additional what was the first one?
Need for additional staff.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, again,
on the administrative leadership part.
so we've always been a small board. It's been, EO and then analyst until we added the SSM1 position. As we grow, we will need that additional staffing, which still has to be through a budget change proposal and also to show there's workload.
Right.
So,
I think with the created strategic plan and all that we have, I'm hoping that it will be easy for you to do that. Because we've always said that we need more staff, and we have, just in the last board meeting, so that's 3 months, we went from 20 in California to 23. Like, so the jump is here, and I just don't want to be behind the 8 ball, so to speak.
yes.
So it's interesting, my comment, the reason I asked the question is I thought about, another strategic plan, and more to do, more to do. But actually, the dialogue's been quite rich. But there's a lot to be done. Some of these things are admirable, in my opinion, but they all require work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. So does anyone have any issues or topics they'd like to address in the area of administration?
I would add review current organizational structure to ensure efficient operations.
Okay. And did you say sufficient or efficient operations?
Efficient.
Efficient.
Yeah.
Okay. And then review organizational structure is the topic or issue, and then why address it to ensure efficient operations?
Correct.
Okay. And then how would the board go about that?
To solve it, it would be through a budget change proposal.
Budget change
Yes.
proposal? Okay. And then the desired outcome?
More money.
That we are performing efficiently and
That
there's no
you're-
delays.
Okay, that you're performing efficiently and there are no delays? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Or you might say staffing adequate to accomplish the board's
Yeah.
mission or
Okay,
plan.
staffing is
strategic plan.
adequate to accomplish the board's mission. Okay. All right, thank you. Any other issues or topics?
Maybe we want to put adequate staffing first to allow for more funding. I don't know, just.
When you said put adequate staffing first, do you mean for the desired outcome or for another issue?
Yeah, just put at the top of the sentence, adequate staffing
Okay.
to, yeah.
Okay.
To accomplish the board's mission of more funding, proficient, performing efficient with no delays.
Okay.
It was just a switch from top to bottom.
Okay. So just put adequate staff as the desired outcome on top, the very first. Yeah. Yeah, just reverse it. Perfect, thank you. Any other topics or issues you think should be included in the strategic plan in the area of administration?
I think we covered some of this in the first one, right?
I think we did.
Yeah, training staff.
Okay.
I thought the same thing. Maybe there's some in the first one that we could move to administration, or maybe we put it in the wrong place.
We could go back and look at licensing. It's fine. I mean, if you can't think of any other objectives for administration, it's fine to have just one there.
Yeah, so number 3 there, that probably could be moved to administration.
Okay. How do other people feel about that? Should we move that to administration?
That's fine. Yeah,
makes
I think
sense,
that's
yeah.
fine.
Okay. All right. Anything else for administration?
This might be a good place for what the board president was talking about in terms of fee increase, that sort of thing, adequate funding to run the board.
Okay.
I have one.
Oh, please. Hurry.
Okay.
Mine was more paperless processing.
Okay.
So the licensees can't print their wall certificates, and so they come to us for that. And if we can have that online option, that
Okay.
would be a really big help.
Okay.
Have more efficiency for the staff.
Okay. So the why address it is so that licensees can print their own licenses.
Yeah, so they can print their pocket cards now, but
Okay.
if they could also print their wall certificates.
Okay. So this is so they can also print their wall certificates.
Yeah,
Okay.
and have that option to do, so they don't have to order it by mail.
Okay. So they don't have to order it by mail. Okay. And that's going, and the board would address that by putting, okay, so putting it on Breeze is how the board would address it.
Just out of curiosity, that's very granular. Do you typically want to get that granular in your strategic plan?
Great comment, because we get granular in the action planning. But I mean, the topic going paperless,
I would say implementing more paperless processes where feasible.
Okay, so implement more paperless processes where feasible, and then the why, address it. Would that be better or
Increased efficiency.
increase efficiency? maybe
Decrease cost.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Decrease cost.
And decrease costs. Okay. Okay.
And it's more convenient for the licensees as well.
And more convenient for the licensees. So I think those are all for the why, address it. And then one of the desired outcomes could be that, licensees can print their own or wall certificates, but also just greater efficiency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ease of access and greater efficiency.
Ease of access and greater efficiency. To the desired outcome. Yeah. All right, and that the wall certificates can be one of the steps in the action planning.
Do we have any other paper issues? I thought we moved a lot of it to paperless.
Yeah, but we have been receiving as far as, checks in the mail. So those things we need to, yeah.
Wow, okay. I didn't know we still. Okay.
All right, any other items for administration? And we did start on a fee increase. Do we want to continue on with that one? And if so, what would be how the board would address that?
Collaborating with external stakeholders for suitable legislation.
Okay. Yep. And then the desired outcome?
I think it would be increased funding and achieving other external stakeholder goals.
Okay. Great.
And just so I'm on the same page, when we do the fee increase, because you're saying we went from 24 months to 17 months in terms of
We're down to
14.8 months.
14.8 this
Right.
time.
Which
And
we've done
mind you-
really
mind
well in our budgeting. So I'm wondering what's the decrease? Is that the
No,
decrease?
mind you, that is during years of fat surpluses.
Exactly, exactly.
And that
So-
happy days are
Right.
not on the horizon.
So did they give us less money? Is that the reason why?
No,
we
so
have-
so you have to realize the medical board used to do our admin processes. Now we have brought in 4 additional staff members, so that's what our,
Okay.
through our fund, that's the reserves we have, that's the money we're using. Even asking for additional personnel, it will come through from that fund. So to increase that, that's when we need the fee increase, because we have been stagnant. We have not increased. Costs are going up, enforcement costs are going up, investigations, so everything's going up, but our fees have not changed. So that's something that we need to look into.
Yeah, and when during the budget process, when they
Right.
start looking for fat to trim,
Right.
we don't want to be
No, I
we don't want to be
I get it.
vulnerable, and I think one of the ways we decrease that vulnerability is internally if we have increased
Right.
licensing fees.
And I thought when we added more, they gave us more money to do that.
No, they gave us authority to use money from our funds. It was our money that they gave us the, okay to use.
That we had. They
Yes,
didn't give us
that's why
any
we
money.
were in such high reserves, because medical board was processing our discipline cases.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much for the clarity. Appreciate that.
All right, any other items for administration? You've got 4 objectives.
Just curious whether any of the staff in the room have anything right on the tip of their tongue. They just can't wait to get it out there. Or maybe a little bit apprehensive about getting it out there.
I think Ginger
Here's-
wants
here's
to
your
say
chance.
something. I said maybe Virginia wants to say something about probation. No.
She didn't really mean it.
Hi, Ginger Gerard, Probation Unit. No, I don't have any. I just want to say that I sit next to Mondo, and I hear him on the phone. I don't know if this is appropriate time for this, but he does a lot of the outreach. He's a saint, and we need more complaint staff, really, because I'll do backup for licensing, but I draw the line on complaints.
That was worth stating, sounds like.
And you do have more enforcement staff as one of your objectives, so it sounds like you're on a good path there. So if you don't have any more to add to administration, we could add up your objectives and let you know how many you have. I think Elizabeth's already doing that as I speak.
So it seems like we added a lot, and so I just want to make sure, so I think you mentioned that we would collaborate with the appropriate people to see, and I guess when we collaborate, can we see how much money we need to, because we're, I don't want to arbitrarily say, hey, we need an increase, but then we don't do our due diligence to get that right increase for like, I counted up 4 to 5 different people coming aboard.
Right. So as far as the fee increase, that has to be done through the Department of Consumer Affairs. It's going to be a collective, and we were told 25, 26 is the year that they will be putting in a proposal to the legislature for us.
Why so late? I'm sorry.
Because they're looking at our reserves right now, but as we add staff, as workload increases, it may be sooner than that.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, keep in mind when you talk about the board fund, if it gets to 24 months, then you have to revert money back. So we were pretty close to that for quite a while. So ideally should be, I think, between 6 and 18, right?
Yes.
All right, so your total number of objectives created today are 16. So with that in mind, how long do you think it would take to achieve those 16 objectives?
1.
More than 2 years.
4, yeah, I would guess 4.
4 years?
Yeah, I'm
You're
kidding.
4 years?
Is it 4 or 5 years normally?
It's usually between anywhere from 2 to 5. So
3.5. Well, I say that because we're a very efficient board. I know, I'm
But we have to realize these proposals go to
other people.
Yes.
Oh,
So-
okay, 5, so.
all right, so do you want to go with 5?
I would say 5.
5? Okay.
I thought we do this internally, and I'm saying
Oh, no,
that
yes.
because we do
Well,
really
you
well.
just patted everybody in the room on the back by going from
I
3 to 5.
did, I
You said there's more-
did. We have a
there's more
great
people
staff, super great staff.
All right, so like I said, today we're just creating the brainstorming. The next steps are Solid will write up a draft. That draft will be sent to the physician assistant board staff so that they can give their input, suggest edits. Then you will be able to review it, also suggest edits, and then once you approve it and post it on the website, then we will work with the board to staff to schedule action planning. And action planning is simply where staff looks at each objective and says, okay, what do we need to do to accomplish that objective? They make a list of tasks, they assign those tasks to staff with target dates, and they also come up with what we call a success measure, which is only a statement that lets you know, okay, how will the board know we accomplished this particular objective? So with that, we are done.
Tricia, I just had a question. As far as the draft itself, it will be it will be presented at the next board meeting, right? For them to formally adopt. Okay, that would be August.
Okay.
Oh, so when are we going to see it?
It will be part of a meeting material. So I don't know if will they get to see it before that.
We will get it to you. So I will be writing it within the next 1 to 2 weeks, probably more like 1 week. And then you can suggest edits, your staff. And then if you want to pass it on to board members or have a special meeting to review it, I don't know. But
as far as the adoption of it, it has to be during a
board meeting.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your hard work.
Public comment?
Yeah.
We're good?
Before we move on from the agenda item, yes, we should. We're still on it, though.
Okay, all right. So having heard all this brainstorming, is there any public comment on that agenda item, the strategic planning session? Okay, none appearing?
I have a quick question.
please.
When we get a copy of the strategic plan, if we don't get it ahead of time, if we don't get it till the board meeting and there's something we want to change, can we edit it then before we approve it, or is that a long process, or?
We can certainly edit it as part of the board meeting. I think the board will be getting it to you in your meeting materials before the meeting, though.
Correct.
Right, but the meeting materials we typically get maybe a week or two before the meeting. So what I'm thinking about is timeline here, and if something falls off, when we get it in the meeting, if we are in the meeting and somebody decides they want something to be a little bit different, is it possible to change it then, or?
Yes.
Okay, thank
We
you.
don't have to adopt it at that meeting, right? We can push it to another meeting to adopt it?
Yeah, we have the November meeting after that. But just like our meeting minutes, if we have any edits, we can say adopt with this change.
Right.
Maybe we can just do that.
All right, so we have it now.
Great, thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
ladies.
you.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate you being so efficient.
And this, Trisha did our voiceover for our licensing video.
Ah,
Yes, thank you.
see, that's horizontal integration. You do
That's
that.
right, that's right, that's right.
Production studio as well.
I liked your
Okay.
diversity video too. It was really nice.
All right. Well, if there's no other business, then it looks like item 18 is adjournment. So we are adjourned.
Awesome.
Thank you, folks. Ow.